Hey everyone, welcome to Indie Film Grit, a podcast about indie films and indie filmmakers. I am your host, Timothy Patrick, but you can call me Tim. In this episode, I have a great conversation with Cory Baker. He's an indie filmmaker, a writer, a director, and he's also a fellow podcaster. So make sure you check out his podcast, Oh, the Anthem. We talk about his podcast. We talk about indie films. We talk about screenwriting. Let's get into it. And here we are with Cory Baker. Cory, how are you?
Doing good. And yourself?
I'm good, man. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
It's exciting to have you here because you are what I would consider a true indie filmmaker. You write, you direct, you produce, you even act.
Yeah, I mean, not first choice. But
Yeah, but in your own projects, right?
Yeah, it's weird. So I grew up in Maryland, where there's not really a huge film community. There's definitely a lot of indie people doing their thing, and there's TV shows that film there, but there's no sustained living in film unless you're in the union.
Or working for the government.
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah. Crabbing. But I knew I wanted to do it, and then just said, go for it. Like, what the hell is stopping you?
So when did you make the move from Maryland to, and it's Baltimore, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. From Baltimore to Los Angeles.
Just last year.
So, fresh off the boat.
Yeah, this is, it's funny because I was writing today. Today is exactly 7 months since I moved in. So
wow.
And it's weird because I knew there was going to be a little bit of a time where you gotta get adjusted, you gotta meet people, you gotta figure out how people want to see cover letters and apply to things, but things are getting a lot more consistent. It's getting to the point where I can pay my rent, but I'm still worried that I might not next month. So,
yeah. Welcome to Los Angeles.
Yeah, I know.
Now, so a lot of the short films you made were before you came out.
Yeah.
Just cutting your teeth on it.
Yeah, and so I had originally started with writing. I was always a good writer throughout school and stuff like that, and I went through one of those particularly tough mid-20s breakups where you think your life is over, and I needed some way to express myself, so I started writing, and I thought, a screenplay might be the way to do it, because I've never tried that before. Wrote the screenplay, loved it, and then kept saying to myself, like, all right, well, and now I'm going to have to turn this over to a director who's going to figure out how to do it. And then the next girlfriend, I was just writing one day, just, complaining about, like, oh, nothing's going right. She's like, just do something, would you? Like, stop complaining. Like, write right now. Write for the next hour. I'm going to leave. Like, just sit here and write. And whatever you write,
that's good
just
advice.
Make it.
I mean, I don't know if you're still together or you fell in love and had babies, but that's good advice.
Yeah, it is.
Especially from a girlfriend.
Yeah. And, what I learned right then was you can make a movie. In these days, you can make a movie for literally no money if you want. And you can do it with things you already have. It doesn't take, like, obviously if you want to make something that looks like Game of Thrones, you need money and people and crew and stuff like that. But my first movie was about the guy looking out the window, me playing the guy, looking out a window and talking about things he's seen. That's like a real easy movie that anybody could do. I used a handy cam, recorded the
Were you in a wheelchair and have binoculars?
No. I should have, though. I should have just ripped off from better filmmakers. That would have been the way to go. That's a lesson you learn later, I guess.
Yeah. But I like your style. I like how you said, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to dive in.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what I tell people now. Like, there was a guy I saw at a party who was like, oh, man, film. I wish I could do that. I said, you can. You got an iPhone. You got an Android, whatever. Just go out there and shoot things. And then, like, if you don't like it, then you don't have to show anybody, but just do it. Like, nothing's stopping you.
back when I was cutting my teeth, it was on VHS cameras.
Yeah.
In 8th grade. Like, and you talk about not being easy. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
If I wanted to slap some music on it, I had to dump it all to another cassette tape on a different VCR while I'm feeding in the music. Kids today, they have iMovie on their phone.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous.
And it shoots HD.
So the first thing I ever did that was like film related, I guess, was when I was 12 or 13 or something like that. My parents had a VHS camcorder. Actually, it wasn't even VHS. I think it was like the mini DV or whatever.
Oh, yeah, mini DV for sure.
Me and our friends would just sort of like make these little short, nothing, whatever videos, mostly of us like playing basketball and stuff like that. But there was a Nike commercial that was really big at that time where you would see just one person in the center of the frame and they'd be dribbling and then they'd throw the ball behind their back and it'd go off screen. And then it would cut to another person, center cut, who would receive the basketball and then start doing their moves.
Sure.
And we thought that was just the coolest thing we'd ever seen at the time. And we started making all of these versions of our own where we were just like dribbling and then passing the ball off. But we didn't know anything about editing either. Sure. So it was all just like...
That's how you learn.
Doing in-camera, like, cut and then get the next person in there. It's like, all right, we're going to record 3, 2, 1, go. And then the ball comes in. And if there was a mistake, like one rolled down the hill and then we had it come back the other way. Like just coming up with like however you could make this like a realistic piece.
I've always liked camera tricks myself, trying to figure out how to do stuff. I'm real big on green screen.
Yeah.
I do a lot of that.
I got a green screen. God, when we first started doing my podcast, which was like...
You should mention the name of your podcast.
The Anthem Podcast.
The Anthem.
Yeah.
And for people not from where you're from, tell them what that refers to.
So during the national anthem, people in Baltimore will owe the anthem. So the second time it rolls around with "O Say Can That Star Spangled," everybody just in unison, if it's a sporting event or, you know, even like people used to do it in school, you would just go like, "Oh," all at the same time. So that's just sort of a local ode to. It's a very communal thing. Like,
and you named your production company after that too?
Yeah.
Oh, the Anthem Productions. Oh, nice.
Yeah. People from Baltimore hear it and they go, you know, like, "Oh, that's so awesome. That's great." And then people from out of town hear it and they go like, "Oh, I don't get what that is." And then you explain it and they go like, "Oh, that's so cool." Yeah. So it works out. It's a nice way of like telling a little. It makes you feel a little bit of the community that I grew up in, sort of thing, where everyone knows everybody and it's 6 degrees of everything. I mean, as far as like making films go, like the best place to start is the thing that you really know or really love. Like there's nobody can tell that story better than you. Like whatever it is, so everyone's got a thing. I really like old movie palaces. Ooh. And like I know where like all the old movie palaces were by where I lived. And
now you're talking like theaters.
Yeah. So like LA specifically, like just go down Broadway.
There's so many, even mid-city and West Side that are just vacant.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh my God, I wish I could buy that building.
Oh God, I think about buying buildings all the time. Like that's constantly like, the one that is going through my mind a lot recently here in LA is just the Pacific on Hollywood Boulevard.
Oh yeah,
because it's just this big, huge, empty nothing, and I'm just like, God, I just want to like make it look like it did in 1940 and show cool movies in it and lose all of my money.
I mean, that's why Westwood is kind of cool because they got that little town square area and there's the old school theaters are working.
Yeah. And the great thing about those ones in Westwood too, the Fox and the Bruin, I think are the ones you're talking about.
Yeah, the Bruin for sure.
Is they've got the, it's one movie company that bought all these. I think it's like Regency or something like that. And they've bought, the Fox is different because that's way older, but they seem to have bought most of these like 80s, 90s theaters and sort of adapted them to be B-run theaters. But I totally get a flashback. Like I went to the one in Pasadena and it totally brought me back to when I was 10 years old, sneaking in to see Judge Dredd or something like that. Like in those sort of seedy, like suburban 1 or 2 screeners. Like it was really cool.
But you go for the sticky floors.
Yeah, right? and the same priced popcorn and sodas. But
was there a movie when you were young that really grabbed you and you're like, oh man, I gotta be a part of that stuff?
Bull Durham.
Bull Durham.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I loved
Baseball.
Bull Durham. Yeah. I loved Bull Durham from the first time I saw it. I was like completely fascinated by it. And I never... What I found so funny about it was that it seemed to be in this time where all the movies I was seeing were like these sort of brainless action movies. Not that they're not enjoyable, but there's nothing particularly deep about some of them. Mm-hmm. And I saw Bull Durham and all these people arguing and talking, and like it was a sports movie, but dialogue plays such a heavy part of it. And I was just like, wow, this is so different than everything I've seen, and it's funny and it's smart, and I still love it. I still watch it all the time.
Yeah, I mean,
before every baseball season, I watch Bull Durham for sure. Yeah.
And then on the flip side, you got Charlie Sheen in
Major League.
Yeah. You're not a fan.
Oh no, I love Major League.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great. There's not a whole lot of baseball movies I don't like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
That's good. Isn't that when he broke his arm and somehow it got like amazing, or what was that one?
That was. I think it was either Rookie of the Year or The Rookie. I feel like it had Rookie in it.
Yeah.
But I can't remember the exact name now. But it was like he...
What about Bad News Bears? That's before your time.
I like the original Bad News Bears.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge thing of the second one. I mean...
I didn't see it.
I saw bits and pieces. It sort of had that, like, why are you doing this kind of feel to it. Mm-hmm. Not that I have any, like, judgment against people trying to remake movies. But sometimes... you see the finished thing and you're just like, well, we don't really need this.
So do you tend to, I know you like baseball, but do your projects lean a certain way? The ones you write and direct, are they more comedy, more sports?
I haven't actually done a sports movie. I think because I just sort of want to like save that for a time where I can really do it proper, you know? Because if I were to make a sports movie right now, it'd just be, like beer league softball or something like that.
Which could be awesome.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have like the access to Dodger Stadium or something like that, which is what I'd really want to be able to do a baseball movie about. I always like the line between drama and comedy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, comedy in itself, like it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you're firing off jokes pretty much nonstop.
Right. But I like the moments where, you sort of get two people talking about something serious and then there's an aside or something to break the tension or, why not take the worst moment that you have and try and make something good of it? Like, even if it's a cautionary tale, like, don't sleep with a stripper or something like that. Just
it's for the kids. Since you do so many things, sound, direct, and it sounds like most importantly, writing is the first thing you do. Do you have any advice for the young filmmaker out there who's staring at that blank page?
The first mistake I made is that I figured that two people talking would be interesting because it was interesting to me. And then you realize that you put it up on camera and it's not as interesting as it reads on the page.
Unless you're Mamet or Tarantino.
Yeah, but even they have sort of things that are happening that draw your attention away from just the talking. Like even like the most prolific of the talkers, like Sorkin, like everyone's just walking while it happens because they got to be doing something.
There's motion,
they can't just sit there. What I started asking myself at a point was, what would make this more uncomfortable, or what would make this more interesting? So in the feature, it starts with a breakup, boyfriend-girlfriend breakup. And originally, it just sort of happened at a restaurant. They were like talking. It felt a little uncomfortable. Afterwards, they broke up. More recently, I've said to myself, that's not interesting enough. So now they're at a ball game, and he says like, "Oh, come on, let's meet friends over at the rooftop bar." And she comes over, and then she sees the mascot and the camera and somebody there with like the like they're getting married sign. And it's just like, all right, well now it's decision time. Like, am I gonna marry the? It's like
you up the pressure.
If you told me, if you make me decide right now whether or not I'm going to marry you, I don't think we should be together. And that's like the thought process that goes through her head. And the breakup happens. And then it finds out that that whole thing was for somebody else. This is just a coincidence.
Yeah.
But it's the catalytic moment where it's just like,
Oh, sure.
if I'm not going to marry him, why am I going to continue being with him? Like, we should
I
just
wonder
split
how-
now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great little device you're using. I wonder how you could apply that to indie filmmakers out there that can't film at a ball game. How would you up that? Would it be a restaurant maybe with more people, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that is big, a ball game.
Well, I mean, the good part about it was that you wouldn't have to necessarily film like you could just show two people in seats. And I feel like if you're industrious enough and you more than anything go and visit somebody in their office, I've gotten so many locations just by going to a building and saying like, is the manager around? And be like, hey, I'm a filmmaker. I was just wondering if I could shoot here. They go like, oh, but yeah, sure. But if you email, they'll send it up the chain to corporate or lawyers, and then it just becomes a big deal. So, somewhere, wherever you live, there's a minor league ballpark somewhere. So if you wanted to film in a minor league ballpark, just go there and say like, is the guy who does operations here? Is the general manager here? And just talk to them and say like, hey, here's what's up. I'm not going to be in the way. I understand if I have to pay a little something for it, but I'm doing an indie thing. I hope you can be respectful of the fact that I don't have a lot.
There's this great film, Narc. I don't know if you've seen it. It's kind of a cop drama film. The cops are driving around the hood, and they're just waving people down and showing them a picture of a missing person. And they're like, have you seen this guy? Have you seen this guy? And then it's almost a montage, and it must be 5, 6, 8 different people. Filmmaker said, no, we didn't get a single release. We wanted a actual reaction from these people. So there is a fine line. You can there's some wiggle room.
Well, so here's the thing. The short I just wrote, I wrote a scene into it. So this will be interesting. I wrote a scene into it.
I hope so.
I knew I wouldn't be able to get a permit for, or more importantly, wouldn't be able to afford a permit for. And the basis of the scene is that a failed actor who never really tried and just like partied and, like wouldn't take any stock of his own character.
I know that guy.
Yeah, I think we all do. There's many of them. He's finally reached the end. He doesn't have the money to continue. And he's got to move back to, I think I wrote him from Raleigh. He's got to move back to North Carolina. And he wants to make one last visit to the Hollywood sign and tell it what up, be like, you never believed in me, you inanimate sign and stuff like that. Never will I be able to get Lake Hollywood Park, Hollywood sign, any of this stuff if I just, go to permit for it. Like it'll just be outrageously expensive, not worth it for a little short that's not going to make its money back. So how do you get around it? Well, I'm having the Hollywood sign censored in it and making it like anybody who doesn't care about him is going to be blacked out. So you can film his Bart in front of a green screen, go up to Lake Hollywood Park, which is a regular DSLR, act like a tourist, shoot 5 minutes of people walking around acting like they're ignoring you, which is what will happen, and then just black bar all their faces. And then you got the location that you want without anybody noticing that you did it, and you just move along. Like,
I'll slap in my 2 cents on that because that's a great way that's a creative way to do it.
Yeah.
Nowadays, with all the royalty-free video clips, you could shoot at the Hollywood sign as long as you're not showing the whole thing and then cut to a drone shot, which you paid for.
Yeah.
And you're fine.
Yeah. Before, like, and just as in, like, from the time we were born and prior, like, there were gatekeepers. There were people who said, like, no, you're not good enough to direct a film yet. You're not, like, we don't take unsolicited scripts. We don't want to make this. Like, all right, screw it. Do it. Just do it. Like, what? There's literally nothing stopping you. Like, you can do. I've seen like these incredible sci-fi shorts that look like they have hundreds of thousands of dollars of CGI,
Some of those fan films,
Yeah.
whether it's Star Wars or Power Rangers or even Wonder Woman, some of those fan films are amazing.
Yeah, and you'll like click on the next video where they're like basically doing like a behind the scenes, like talking about how they did it. Just like, yeah, this scene took about 20 hours, but I just sat in front of the computer and did it. It's like no, like I had to pay somebody, I had to get some permission from it. You just make it. Like and with the internet, any kind of knowledge that you need is readily available somewhere. You just have to ask the right follow-up questions and know what you're looking for.
You got to be hungry for knowledge as well. You got to be willing to put that in. I mean, that actor you're talking about who's swearing at the Hollywood sign, guess what? He wasn't hungry for knowledge.
No.
He was just expecting it to happen.
Yeah.
And
that's a lot of people. A lot of people just say, like, even if you're talented, sometimes that's the worst. If you're naturally talented and you're like, well, it's going to happen eventually because no. Like, number one, they don't have any obligation to use talented people. We all would like talented people to be at the front, but we're also living in a world of Kim Kardashian. So that's A. B, people who work really hard are the ones who get ahead. And
if you do it your way, from the beginning, like a Tarantino or a Rodriguez, eventually, when you get the keys to the kingdom, you don't have to answer to anybody.
Yeah.
You know?
Though there still are, I find it funny. I think it was an interview that Woody Allen did right after he signed that deal with Amazon for the series and a couple movies and stuff like that. He said, nobody funds my movies. Like, I go around, I ask rich people for money, they say no. Like, and you say to yourself, what does Woody Allen have to prove at this point? Like, what is...
Scorsese, the same thing.
He's been trying to make the same movie for 20 years. Like,
that last one, about the missionaries.
Yeah, like, what do they have to do? But, I mean, it's just a weird metric of, like, how much money you think something's going to make, and... I don't know. I'd rather just. It's like when you feel really confident about something and you go all in. You're just like, no, I'm absolutely right about this. I'm sure that the year that this happened was 1996, and everyone's like, no, you're crazy. I'm like, no, I know it. It absolutely, 100%. Go for it. Like that should be you should have written a script, looked at it, and gone like, why is this not a movie yet? And then every single day, like, feast and hunger for whatever you can to make it more of a possibility. And
guess what? If you're wrong, you learned a lot.
Yeah.
You learned a lot.
Oh, I learned so much on terrible films.
Yeah.
I've made terrible films.
You have to.
Yeah.
Nobody that makes great films didn't make terrible films.
Oh, yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
That's part of the process. That's what... I like, the cut of your jib because you're saying go do it. We are truly a society of makers now. And it's going to start blowing people's minds, the amount of content being produced by kids. Like I said, when I was making stuff at 15, 16, 17, it was crap, but it made me happy. And you start to learn, you start to figure out.
So I had this thing, like I just recently redid my reel. And, because there wasn't a deadline, because there wasn't anybody like banging down my door asking me where my new reel was, it took forever. I just edited a little bit here and there whenever I felt the inclination to do so. And then I just sit on it and not do anything. And every once in a while I'd see something that said like, send your reel. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm not doing that. But eventually, like, I'm just like, why the hell am I waiting? Just do it. Like, get it out there. And if people hate it, then you can pull it down, or you can say it was a joke or whatever. Like, it's not that nothing lives forever. Like,
you got nothing to lose too, because back in the day, if I wanted to show my work, I'd have to go to my buddy's house and pop it in the VCR.
Right.
Nowadays, throw it up on YouTube. If you get 2 views, it sucks. If it blows up, you're onto something. But the audience is there.
And that's the thing. The connection is always, because regardless of what point in the process you're in, it's about a connection. Your vision and the audience. But there's also a time where you're going to have to convince an actor to be in the thing. Like, I really want this guy to be the lead in my movie. So I'm going to set up a meeting. I'm going to have lunch with him. We're going to talk about it. He's going to have read the script at that point, probably. And I'm going to say...
No sex involved.
No sex, yeah. It's just, Danishes. And then you sit down, and what they want to hear is you express the passion for the film that you're about to make. Because if you sit down there and go like, well, I think we can make a quick buck, let's just do it. Like, nobody wants that. Nobody wants to be involved. Like, if you say like, I know this story. My mother had breast cancer. This is a story about breast cancer. And nobody knows what it's like to be in that position until we put them there. And I want you to be the audience. I want the audience to feel like they're in your shoes the whole time. And I think we can tell a really valuable story, and I'd like you to be a part. Like, that sort of thing just hits people.
Yeah.
If
motivation,
you
drive, like, why are you doing it?
It's all about connection to people. If you can connect with everybody along the steps, then you'll be fine. Like, and people are going to hate things regardless. So,
one last little bit of advice to anybody out there wanting to make indie films, if you got anything. I don't know. I may have drained the tap.
No, I'd say that I was interesting because I took many different paths. Like, I started writing, I thought that was going to be it. And then you do a little bit extra, you do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And you're like, oh, God, I love this all. So just because you are sitting there thinking like, well, I can't write a script. Well, maybe you can do CGI. You don't know it. Just go, like, download a program. There's free ones available. Make something.
Try stuff.
Yeah, you don't, and nothing has to be shown. That's the glory of this. Like, if you want to write a script and you write a script and it's terrible and you think everyone's going to laugh at you if you show it at them, well, don't show it to people. Like, now you know you can't do that.
Yeah. Or show it to people and listen to them telling you how crappy it is.
Yeah.
And you'll learn from it.
Or just, if you read it and you're just like, God, this is terrible, fix it.
Yeah.
Like,
or burn it.
Yeah, whatever.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks, man. Thanks for coming on. Can we plug your website and whatnot? How people can find you?
Yeah. My website is CoryBakerFilmmaker.com. On Facebook, Cory Baker Film. And then everything else, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, all is Legend CB5.
Legend CB5.
Yeah.
Well, man, once again, thanks for coming.
No,
and, I'm going to listen to your podcast now that I found it. Oh, the Anthem Podcast. It's a great show on iTunes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, man. And keep up the good work, man.
I appreciate
keep doing it.
And I hope for nothing but good things from this podcast going forward.
There you go. I'm with you on that. All right, dude. Take care.
Thank you so much.
And we'll be talking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's that. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Indie Film Grit podcast, and I hope you're enjoying all of our episodes. Feel free to go to our website, indiefilmgrit.com, check out the show notes. Follow us on Twitter @IndieFilmGrit, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Yeah, that's a good idea. I should really wrap this up, but before I go, let me ask you something. Do you have the courage, the passion, and the perseverance to make indie films? Do you have enough indie film grit?